What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So today we are going to be finishing our three-part series of best spots to grind for a certain thing. So the first one was best spots to grind for silver, the second was XP, and this one is going to be for AGRIS. Now, the first two were pretty good, and this one has been changed over the past year, and they kind of unified AGRIS in terms of like easy to use at more or less all spots nowadays. But we're going to be talking about that regardless for all of you who are still interested in finding, like, you know, the best usage of it. And we're also going to talk about life skills included because, I mean, there's multiple uses for AGRIS these days. And so with that said, before we get started, I wanted to tell you guys something that I'll only announce at the beginning of the video once from now on, and in the future it'll just be at the end. So right now, we have an event going on for all the BDO partners, and if you spend money or you buy A coins or you buy one of those game packages, if it's your first time going in or upgrading, you can use my code, and I get a little bit of whatever you spend on it, and that would really help out a lot. It's just nice to have. So this is my second time doing this. This is the second time Prolibus has ever done this, and it's back again for all of us. So there'll be a code on screen, and if you just want to use it for A coins or pearls, whatever, or game package upgrades, feel free to use that. And don't feel pressured to spend money or anything. It's just if you're going to do it and you want to use my code, I just get a little bit out of it as well. So always appreciated, never required. And with that said, let's get into the monster zone. So I'm going to try something a little bit different this time. And if you're interested in seeing the best spots to grind for silver or XP, I'll leave a link in the description. Those are like kind of longer videos, like 30 minutes and on. So yeah, those are some things you kind of have to watch at your own time. And we went down by AP order. So what we're going to be doing this time is going to talk about it by region. And I figured that is just going to be easier to talk about different grind spots and everything. So with that said, nowadays, all spots are decent with AGRIS because they all use like roughly 20 to 30,000 AGRIS per hour. And I just want to talk about some spots that I think are, you know, extra good, better than normal. So with that said, Prodi Cave. This one, you know, this isn't like a lot of the lower end spots are generally not really worth using it just because you might as well save it for something else. But if you were a new player and if you've done the AGRIS quest early on and you just have it done, you might as well just use it. And also, before we start, I wanted to say that it doesn't matter. Like, if you like grinding one spot, even if it's not the most efficient, just use it, because if you let it cap out at 100,000 or whatever your max is, you're just like letting silver go by. And so ultimately, at the end of the day, use it instead of letting it cap out. All right, so this one might change in the next month or two because during the Calpheon ball, they talked about that they're going to be revamping the Sakraya spots, so both underwater and upper. Upper is going to be a 300 AP spot going forward. Like, whenever that happens, they talked about that in the Calpheon ball. The reason why was because everyone who's ever gone for the Rich Merchant Ring piece here knows that it's absolutely terrible, and you know, they're going to be raising the spot, increasing the drop rate of this, and assuming everything else as well. So as of right now, not good, but in the future it's going to be a 300 AP, so that's going to be different. And underwater, the abyssal version essentially is going to be a 395 AP, which is really endgame. So I'll be doing videos of that when that happens, but until then, underwater is, you know, it's not bad currently. We'll see how it is in the future. And anyone who's grinding here, you're really here for the Merchant Ring piece because that's the only notable thing currently. All right, so talking about all these spots, and we're going to be more or less mentioning all the LVO spots as well. So every spot here is decent. The highlights of the Serendia spots are probably Orc Camp, which I believe is actually fixed now, because when they made the change a while ago with the whole AP cap and AGRIS change. It wasn't working, but I believe it's fine now. So I believe Castle Ruins, that one is, you know, still probably the least useful because this one is a party of 3, even though you could solo it. So I'd probably ignore this one. Bloody Monastery or Camp, probably the 2 highlights I would recommend for these spots. But in terms of if you're going for silver overall, the big silver from all these Elvia spots is collecting the shards, so like the yellow, blue, and red ones, and then combining it into the cups for your accessories and then selling those. So it's not so much that the AGRIS affects the amount of silver, it's more just like the trash loot. So using AGRIS here is fine, but a big chunk of the silver comes in from the shards and turning it into the cups and then all this stuff. So yeah, it's not super helpful in any of them, but it's nice to have. But the big ticket items are, you know, coming from, you know, taking the items and drops and combining it. So either way, Orc Camp and Bloody Monastery for AGRIS, still pretty good. And those are my highlights. Okay, going into the Calpheon region. Spots that I'd recommend. Hex Sanctuary. This one is kind of crazy. No matter where you're at in the game, this spot is good with and without AGRIS. And it's just because there's a high density of mobs, so you kind of like use your AGRIS a little bit more. But it's also pretty solid in terms of just like, you know, it doesn't take as much AGRIS as it used to, because I remember a couple years ago you could use like a full straight up 100,000 AGRIS in about like 20 minutes, and then that got changed, so it's a little bit better. Other spots, probably honestly any of the Elvia things are pretty fine. So Hex Sanctuary probably be the highlight. Cyclops Land is decent if you could do Dekia. And they're going to be changing Star's End in the future. So if you're watching this like 3 months later down the line, once again, another Calpheon ball change. They're changing this one to a super endgame spot, 395 AP. And chances are most people won't be able to do that until like later on in the year. Everyone gets more gear over time. But yeah, just know this one is going to get changed in the future to an endgame spot. Otherwise, Quint Hill, low-key really good with AGRIS. There's not too many enemies, which like doesn't use their AGRIS consumption as much, but this spot gives a lot of silver. So yeah, I think the highlights for Calpheon are probably Quint Hill, Hex Sanctuary, and maybe Cyclops Land a little bit. Everything else, not so much. Trader's Graveyard is a notable one for newer players. Like if you have it, like you can use it on seasons, but that's about it. Like other than that, if you're grinding anywhere else, I would use it somewhere else. Okay, Mediah. Mediah doesn't really have that many good grind spots, admittedly, for endgame players. If you were going to grind anywhere with AGRIS, it would be Kretuga Ancient Ruins, just because, you know, the trash loot is, you know, decent. If you're going to grind here, this is a good spot in general, so you might as well just dunk your AGRIS here anyway. Aside from that, there's just not too many notable spots in Mediah, and I hope that changes in the future. So highlights would be Kretuga, and yeah, that's really it, to be honest. Valencia. Okay, so this one actually has a lot of decent ones. And these are multi-purpose grind spots. So chances are you're going to be grinding for treasure items like the archaeologist map, the compass, and I think that's all they have here. Yeah, that's archaeologist map and compass. So, in my opinion, one, Kadri Ruins is a very solid spot compared to Crescent Shrine. I used to compare these two spots a lot because they are very similar in gear requirements for everything, and they roughly gave a similar amount of silver from my testing videos a while ago. And I would personally say Kadri is a little bit better, easier to grind, and also not in the middle of the desert, so you don't have to like ride there all the way. So that's one of those things that's good. Akhman Temple is... if you were to pick Akhman or Histria, I would choose Histria overall, but this isn't, like, this one isn't bad. Centaurs, this is just, you know, this never got nerfed, but people just outgrow the spot a lot faster nowadays, simply because, you know, by the time you're 180, you're just like straight 240 10 minutes later. So like in 1 hour, you could just be 240 AP it, and most people just don't grind here. It's not that as bad. It's just people would rather grind other spots because season gearing with Tuvala is significantly easier nowadays. But this is still a notable spot for people who like it. Let's see, Histria. For all of you going for the Elton piece, good luck. That one was a huge pain and struggle, especially for me. So AGRIS, absolutely good here, and I'd recommend it. Admittedly, it's not as good as before, because remember when Tungrad accessories were like 150 mil each, Dabos were like 700 plus. That's where the big silver came in. But if you're gonna grind here, steel black magic crystals are always good, you know, a bunch of everything else. So AGRIS, solid here. Pelaku with AGRIS does not really make a difference. Trust me, I recently got my archaeologist map like a month ago, and this was one of the spots where if you were to say sulfur mine or Pelaku jail, sulfur is significantly better by like 2 times the amount of silver an hour, roughly 1 to 1.5 billion silver, which kind of low for a 300 AP spot, but I was there strictly for map piece, and this one is like half of that, so it's kind of bad even with AGRIS, and that's where I did my testing. So sulfur mine with AGRIS, good. Pelaku, not so good, despite being both of them being Dekia, and that's about it. So basically all of the Dekia spots are good to use it on, but if you were to pick some things, you know, for example, treasure pieces, sulfur over Pelaku, and then Histria over Akhman. That's what I'd recommend. Okay, Kamasylvia. Now this spot is, or these spots are pretty good. If you're grinding at Ash Forest, if you're going for silver, chances are you're gonna be grinding at Dekia 2 Ash Forest. This spot for AGRIS, very good. This is a generally good top 5 spot in my opinion for silver. So it's a already good spot. Plus with AGRIS makes a lot more, roughly I don't know, really 2 to 4 billion an hour, depending on RNG. I would say about like 2.5 on average. And so, yeah, it's really good. Big ticket items are obviously, you know, the Dekia artifacts. And then if you get the Stalwart Fortitude compared to the other ones, always good. You get a bunch of Dekia fragments. Nice. Limbo boxes and so on. Yeah, so I'd probably just use that Dekia 2 compared to the other ones. And let's see what else is good. I would say if you are a seasonal character and you just have a lot of AGRIS left over and you don't know what to do with it, don't get at polys. Like, this is for new players, not really endgame players. So Gyfin is about to be changed upper, that is, in the future. I don't know when. They kind of announced it and never really talked about it again. So you know how this is like a party spot, but the AP requirements, this is like a good spot in this prime like 3 years ago. Nowadays it's kind of dead. They're going to revamp it in the future. We don't really know anything further than that, except they just talked about it and that's about it. Underground Gyfin with AGRIS is solid. It is the #1 spot in the game for XP, and also, you know, just like it's not a terrible spot. So I think it's, you know, if you're gonna grind there anyway, you might as well just use your AGRIS there as well. And that's about it. So Ash Forest being the highlight, Gyfin coming in second, Polys if you're a new player. Drieghan, Bloodwolves is a good spot. Shuriken during the day, also, you know, solid. You know, the way I calculate this is, you know how, let's say, you grind a spot and you get like 4 to 5 trash loot per enemy, right? And then some spots like with AGRIS, it just like doubles that compared to just +1/+2. Shuriken during the day kind of gives a lot, so I don't I think this one is like low-key good, and same with Blood Wolves. Aside from that, Tashira is actually terrible, and I never want to be there again. Nighttime is the place you grind only if you want the full pity or full potion piece drop, and then daytime is you get a mix of both. So yeah, Blood Wolves, Shuriken, both very solid grind spots. Going into Ulukita, Crypt of Resting Thoughts. If you're grinding there, you might as well. It's not terrible, but like chances are you're grinding there for the Merchant Ring piece. Debo belts are not too expensive. I think you get them at a higher rate than others. So like realistically, back in the day when I was grinding this spot, I would get like 1 to 2 Debo belts an hour back when these were in its prime. And compared to other Debo spots, you get like 1 every 3 to 4 hours. So this one is just still a very good spot. Every single Olin's grind spot for AGRIS is very solid. And, you know, it really just depends on your 2 other group mates you're running with. If you clear fast, it's good. If they don't clear fast, it's not so good. So, but overall, I would say AGRIS solid. Orzekia, pretty good. I think this is also a top 5 grind spot, so if you're there, you might as well turn your AGRIS on. Most of the silver comes from Gem of the Voids, which you turn into the endgame Void Crystals. So the Akrod and the let me just show you guys so you can see what it is. This crystal, Akrod, and the Void Destructions, these are the things you combine the gem crystals with and turn it into endgame crystals. So very good. Admittedly, I haven't done any Turos or Tunkuda since they made the change. I heard it was solid, but I don't have too much knowledge on that one. Thornwood's always a solid spot. It's not as good as before, but it's still decent. You know, roughly 1.5, 2 billion an hour, and it's pretty chill. So yeah, highlights of this would be Orzekia, D2 Olins, and then probably. Well, actually, I would just recommend those 2 spots. The other spots aren't bad. It's just not the best. Mountain of Eternal Winter. I don't even think Etheria's Limbo exists in the game anymore. They took out that little token thingy. And quite honestly, all of these spots are relatively dead. I wish they would get a buff or like a revamp like Decky or something. The only spot that's worth it here nowadays is Jade Starlight Forest, because iridescent crystal or lightstones are very expensive and they drop at a pretty high rate. So with that said, yeah, trash loot gets kind of multiplied by a lot compared to just like adding 1 or 2. So you actually do need a lot of weight for this one, or just know how to horse stack, have maids, and so on. But yeah, Jade Starlight Forest, extremely good with AGRIS. The trash loot just gets multiplied by a lot, and then other 3 spots irrelevant. Ulukita, yeah, literally every spot except City of the Dead is worth using AGRIS. Dark Seekers is probably in the top 10 grind spots. I would even argue like outside of Edania, probably like, you know, number 2 or 3. Tungrad, very good. Highlands kind of fell off, but it's still a very chill spot. Like, all of these are good spots. Highlights would be Darkseekers and Tungrad. Ezerheed, just because things aren't at max price anymore, is why I don't really recommend it. But it's still not bad silver. It's just, if you're like at 310 AP, I'd probably recommend trying out Darkseekers or Tungrad. So generally, yeah, 310. If you're at this point, either grind Orzekia from somewhere else, or you know, like try this one if you can. It's not. I know the 350 AP is a lot, but realistically, this spot got nerfed, and you do not need 440 DP. And I believe, let me see, what is it? Orzekia doesn't have a species, right? Let's just see. What is 1595? Still better than Ethereum, in my opinion. So yeah, we talked about this one, Ulukita. Yeah, I still think, depending on which class you play, Tungrad could be better than Darkseekers, but I think for your average player, Darkseekers, these are both doable. Like, I know they have different effectives, but like, let's say you're in between. Let's say you're like 1400 to 1450. I think you can do Darkseekers just as well as Tungrad. So yeah, with that said, landed a Morning Light. Hong Lim kind of fell off just because people are zooming past the gear score requirement these days. And, you know, with the amount of Pen Black Stars they're giving out with the Olvia Academy thing and then the 2 others and the catch-up mechanics, the Tri-Fallen God and Karazad accessories, I think Dokkaebi, and I've heard that you can use AGRIS at Fortunate or Golden Pig Cave in general now, which I think is very good. Dokkaebi is fine. So the highlights, in my opinion, Dokkaebi Forest and Fortunate Golden Pig Cave, and low-key, just in case you guys didn't know, so back before Edania, these spots would only be open for like 1 to 2 hours a day, simply because everyone is grinding there. These are the best spots in the game. Nowadays, now that Edania came out and people are grinding there, this Fortunate Golden Pig Cave is open like 10 hours a day. So if you're just trying to grind out crystals or whatever these things are, yeah, you could just grind here. I did a video of that recently. It was just kind of like 2 bill in 20 minutes, which was kind of lucky, but also, you know, pretty nice. So yeah, it's roughly, if I were to say on average, about 3 bill an hour, 2.5, 3 bill an hour. And Dokkaebi, for people who cannot do Fortunate Golden Pig Cave yet, very solid alternative. You should never be doing Golden Pig Cave, like the non-fortunate one. And Hong Lim, I mean, Hong Lim is not bad. It just, like, if you can do the other spots, Dokkaebi would be better. And the reason why I say that is, if you were to have asked me this a year ago, even when Dokkaebi was out in Hong Lim made more than Dokkaebi just because it was so underwhelming grinding here. So, yeah. So Hong Lim used to be best. Nowadays, it's not bad, it's just not the best. So Dokkaebi is actually better, and same with Fortunate Golden Pig Cave is open all day. Edania. If you can grind at any of these spots, obviously they are good. So, yeah, these are the top 5 spots according to Garmoth as well. Obviously, these spots are very endgame and require a lot of gear. So the only controversial one is Ethereum Castle. If you get accessories out of here, you're doing great. It's especially with AGRIS, it's great. If you are not getting accessories, I do believe, according to Garmoth, Orzekia is probably a little bit better. And if you have like decent RNG, some Ulukita spots, it really just depends on your class. I don't think this is bad. It's just, you know, just see how much trash loot you can get and compare it to others. Orbita, Tenebrum, Zephyros, they're all very solid. I use my AGRIS here a lot. I made a video of Tenebrum getting about like 4 bill an hour with AGRIS, and out here Zephyros is like slightly higher, but ultimately it really comes down to how many heralds do you get, how many accessories and everything. So I think without AGRIS it's about like under 3 billion. With AGRIS it's upwards 4 billion and maybe more depending on RNG. Orbita, just be careful when you're grinding here. It's a very good spot, but it's also very scary, especially at nighttime. You know how it is a light and dark pillars? The dark pillars will put like a negative DP on you. So like you do more damage, but you take more damage. And if you combine that with nighttime and things like bursting you because they spawn in waves, and you get like 100 to 0, that's the only scary thing about Orbita. So like you could literally just get 100 to 0 no matter how much gear you have here. And that's scary. But everything else, pretty chill. Yeah, every Edania spot is solid with AGRIS, and then that's everything here. Back in the day, they used to have, you know, one of these tags that told you like, oh, which spots are good with AGRIS. Now that it's kind of unified, everything is decent. So with that said, that's all I wanted to talk about. if you have any questions or anything, feel free to let me know. I'm happy to point you in the right direction. And just if you need help with like gear or anything, join the Discord. And I have a channel for gear. Just post a screenshot with where you're at and just be like, hey, what do I do? Or try to be specific with your questions, and I'm happy to help you. All right, so anyway, that's about it. Just want to say thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We have a bunch of videos coming out for the rest of December. And once again, just to self-advertise that code over there, if you're thinking about buying any like pearls, A-coins, or upgrade your game package, just use my code and I get a little bit. So thanks so much for watching. That's all. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.